Robbie Keane, it's great to have you virtually with me across computers. How are you doing during this unprecedented time?
Yeah, how you doing, Adam? Good to see you. Yes, I'm good. It's been strange, obviously, the lockdown, but for me personally, I've actually quite enjoyed it really because, as you know, playing football for a long time and traveling around the world and not really having the opportunity to actually stay at home for a couple of months, I've quite enjoyed. So I've got two young kids, 11 and 4, two boys who are crazy about football. So it was good to spend 2 months of out in the garden kicking the ball around with them. So I quite enjoyed it actually.
On the topic of kids, and I saw you put up a video online as well of one of your kids practicing. I reached out to a couple of mutual friends to ask questions for you, and I'm going to be their conduit for it. So the first one comes from a really good friend of mine, Dominic Matteo.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know why he's asking this, but he wants to know, can you sing Baby Shark, or do you know the song?
I certainly know the song, but I won't be singing it.
Okay, you can message him after this. And
yes, I will message him. Yeah.
What that question's all about. Given that you are obviously currently with Middlesbrough, how in tune are you with what's happening in the Premier League? I mean, how have you kept abreast? Are you as fully into it right now as you could be?
Absolutely, yeah, of course, because we kind of the championship really feeds off that, doesn't it? I know it's separate, but once they sort of give it the go ahead, like the big hitters, if you like, it will be pushed down then towards when that's obviously happened. They have full contact on Wednesday. We had full contact today, so snowball effect, and so keeping an eye on everything. Yeah, so just looking forward now, like everybody is getting the games going and getting football back on reality for me, on TV for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, when it comes to the Premier League, you scored so many goals. I think only 14 players have actually scored more than you in that division specifically. So one question which always crops up nowadays is Virgil van Dijk. Is he as good as your Rios, your Vidic's, your Stams, etc.? What's your take on where Virgil van Dijk stands?
No, he's definitely up there. Definitely. He's got everything. He's unbelievable in the air in both areas. Very, very comfortable with the football. Brilliant defender, one-on-one defender. Always in control of the situation. So for me, he's definitely going to go down. Even now, as one of the great defenders. As the players you mentioned there, I had the pleasure of playing with, Rio Ferdinand, who was it was very similar in terms of he never looked like he was struggling. He was always in control of the situation. And like Virgil, a Rolls Royce defender, Rio is the same. And Virgil has been different class. I think he's been the difference, in the last few years in terms of where Liverpool are. So he's certainly top player.
That's true. But of course, you yourself are known not for defending. You're known for your goals. Do you have a favourite within the Premier League? Is there one that comes to mind straight away for you?
Well, there's a couple that I like. The one I scored against Blackburn when I chipped it over Savage's head and shot again and then scored, and then one against Chelsea for Tottenham. And the 4-4, famous 4-4 game, and I scored in the last minute for the equaliser. So they're two. They're one of two. But I enjoy scoring so many goals, but there would probably two that would stand out to everybody.
And in terms of the celebration, I reached out to a few more people. Michael Bridges and Danny Mills both asked me to ask the question to you. Where did the celebrations come from?
As a kid, was growing up, we used to just mess about in the street. I was very flexible as a kid, and we just used to mess about. And then I remember I scored one goal for my local team and just did it messing, just playing around. And then, as I kept doing it, and then I became, playing in the English league, my friend said, you have to continue to do it. So I continued to do it. So it just came from that really. So nothing really special.
Okay. And if you were a player now in your prime, as a goal-scoring threat, which team do you see yourself fitting into under, which manager, which system suits you best? Put aside your allegiance to the clubs you played for, but just generally speaking.
Well, I think if you want to play for a team that's free-flowing football, of course it has to be Man City and Liverpool in terms of how many opportunities strikers gets. Is incredible. Of course, Tottenham would be in there as well. So you'd always want to play for the top team because as a striker, you thrive off opportunities. And then when you've got players like that behind you, like your David Silvas, like the Mo Salahs and the Firminos and setting you up, and Mane's, Sané and Mane, two of them. So, you know, to have players like that behind you and feeding the balls is incredible. So, I mean, it would be very tough to pick one of those. I think you'd be quite happy with either.
True. And of course, you did go to Liverpool at a point in your career, but why don't you think it panned out entirely for you? How do you reflect back on that period?
I reflect on it as positive. I'm not a negative person. It is what it is. You know, Rafa Benitez wanted to play a different way. I've got no problem with him at all. I think he's a good manager, tactically very, very good. But for me, you know, he liked to play the midfield, like Stevie behind Torres, and listen, the two of them were unbelievable together. So I had no problem with that. Like I've mentioned many times before, is that for me, it's all about playing football. And it doesn't matter where I am. I don't do it for the money. I do it for the love of the game. So I don't wake up every Saturday morning and look forward to sitting on the bench. I wake up on a Monday, look forward to training, Tuesday training, and then, you know, building up to the game on the Saturday. So, of course, there's times where you don't play. But if you don't play as regularly as you'd like to, I'm not that kind of guy that likes to sit on the bench too long. So I just want to play, as I mentioned before, and that was the reason why I left. But I certainly enjoyed my time there. It was a great club, as you know, one of the greatest clubs in the history of the game, and you know, I'm honoured to have the opportunity to put that jersey on.
Yeah, and I mean, you strike me as someone that enjoys life. You're very positive. So I got another question. This one from your former goalkeeper, Paul Robinson. So
you must know a lot of people, you.
I've met quite a few people. I've reached out to various teammates of yours, let's put it that way. And he asks this: what did you and Woody get up to in the Spurs changing room?
Me and Woody?
Yeah.
Well, me and Woody were one of the senior players, so we were making sure that we were keeping the guys in check, and Robbo as well. So not really much. We were trying to help a lot of the young players. I think he's trying to look for something for me to say something completely different than not look after the young players. Maybe something bad, but I'm not going to say it.
Fair enough.
But tell Paul I said hello.
I definitely will. I'll tell all the guys, and I'll cut up these little clips and send it to them as well. I mean, speaking of all the players I've mentioned, you yourself have played with so many unbelievable footballers from the current generation even to the previous generations. So if you had to pick, say, a five-a-side team, who would you go with? And you're not allowed to include yourself for this. Let's just say it's six-a-side. You are a striker, so you're already in the team. Who else is there? Let's start with goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper, I put Shay Given in. Shay Given, definitely. Centre, if I was playing five-a-side, I want a football and centre back, who's going to possibly push into midfield as well. So possibly Rio.
Yep.
Rio Ferdinand. I put Gareth Bale playing on the left side, so he can just get up and down.
Yeah.
Luka Modric in the middle, because he can do both. He can get off Rio, he can score goals. Berbatov up front. And
that's five. And I'm going to include you, so we're making it six.
Oh, it's me. Oh, yeah. Me and Berbatov could play up front together.
I would pay a lot of money to watch that team play. I mean, if you're all in your prime, obviously. Actually, you're all pretty young still, so I think you can probably do a decent job. You've played with quite a few clubs. You've just mentioned a few players from different clubs, etc. Which club do you hold closest to your heart in terms of? I
think what people would associate me more, and you guys, the media, would be Tottenham, obviously, because I was there for so long. It's a club that, you know, really enjoyed my time. I was there for 8 years. Got a lot of special memories there. Still a lot of, you know, really, really good friends there. So for me, it would have to be Tottenham. We were, as I said, I was lucky enough to score a lot of goals there. Play over 300 games for them, score over 100 goals. So that's the team that would, you know, I would hold close to my heart. And my son, my 11-year-old is a Tottenham fan also.
Yeah, I saw he's got Son on the back. Could be son of Robbie Keane or son. I wasn't entirely sure. Danny Mills asked this one. He was wondering what it was like going to Inter Milan at such a young age. How did you settle in? I'm guessing you didn't speak Italian, at least when you went. Were there any inductions, etc.?
Yeah, for me, it was fine. Looking back now, I was probably a little bit too young. I was only 20 years of age, but it was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. Play for one of the biggest teams in the world, and I was lucky when I went there. Good people, Christian Vieri, Clarence Seedorf, who spoke English, that certainly helped me. But of course, I was doing lessons, and as I went on, I was learning the language. But great time, great learning curve for me in terms of understanding football. So I went from Wolves to Coventry, 1 year in the Premier League, and then jumped into Italian football. So for me, it was great. I really, really enjoyed it. I certainly took the positive there. You understand the football and managers and how they do things differently, understanding your food. So if you look at now, a lot of the English players now going to the Bundesliga, I would recommend players to go abroad to learn, different cultures, different types of football. And certainly that was the case for me in Italy.
Yeah, I still remember that. It seems surreal that it's been so long since it happened, but it really does feel like it happened yesterday. You were also in America. Did you find yourself being able to just be anonymous for once? Because obviously soccer is not the biggest sport there. But if you're in Europe, you're a big name. Yeah,
it was, yeah. But then that soon changed then when we started winning championships. So it was, of course, it's not the same as it is over here. Everyone would recognize you, certainly in Europe. As you said, in America, because, around LA, there's so many different actors and actresses and different sports people and, so many famous people. So many people are used to seeing people there all the time. So in that sense, it was completely fine. But as I said, when we start winning championships and there's billboards of you up on La Cienega, yourself and David and the rest of the team, of course, people start recognizing you. And of course, by winning championships is always good. So, but in terms of over there and enjoying it, for me it was the great experience. Absolutely loved it. And I said to people before, I don't think you're going over to America for a holiday. It's a tough league. It's very challenging, and if you think like that, you'll get found out fairly quickly. And so I just threw myself into it. Absolutely loved it. And as I said before, it's something that I'd recommend to anybody.
I've spoken to a few people quite recently who've played in America. One, Pablo Angel, Nigel Reo-Coker. They're both very much, they loved it. But Nigel was talking about the travel and how tiring it can be. You don't figure how large it is as a footballer.
No, it's massive. I didn't mind the travel, to be honest with you. It didn't really bother me. The furthest place we would go to would be New York, which would be 5 hours away. But you'd spend a couple of days there. So for me, it wasn't a problem. Apart from that, most places were 2 hours away on a flight, 2.5 hours. So it's something that you get used to. I think you have to understand, if you're going over to America, you're not going over there not in the understanding that you've got if everywhere there's a half an hour flight like there is in England. Like you understand, how big America is. So I certainly understood that. And as I said before, this is why when you're going over to places like this, you have to throw yourself into it. You have to accept everything that comes with it. So I certainly didn't have a problem with that. And it was, as I said before, it was between now and sort of then and now, the difference in the football in terms of like the fans, how many people's in the stadiums now. When I first went, it was a little bit over half full, and then a year later, it started to fill up again. Yeah. And a year after that, most stadiums were full, and the time I left, everywhere was full. And then there was new teams coming into league, and they continue to do that. So it's certainly a league that's grown massively, and it's very, very exciting to see, because we were, David and I was one of the first foreign players, if you like, go over there to help grow the game, and I think we did that. And after us, then the import of foreign players and top import of foreign players coming in, has been exceptional.
And now he has his own franchise.
I know.
Into Miami.
I didn't get mine.
Not yet. Not yet. But when it comes to the next stage of a career, obviously we've seen you in the assistant manager's position. Do you see yourself wanting to take over the hot seat? Because I can imagine being the assistant is very different to being the head honcho.
Yeah, listen, for me, it's just everything is a learning curve. I'm in no rush to be manager. Of course, I've made it fairly clear that one day I'd like to be, but it has to be the right thing for me, and it has to be the right moment. And at the moment, I'm quite content in what I'm doing. I'm quite enjoying it. Great manager told me once last year, Marcelo Lippi, my old manager when I was at Inter, told me to take my time. There's no rush. You know, if you could potentially be a manager for 20, 30 years like him and like other great managers. So you don't need to rush into it and thinking that you need to do it quickly. So I'm in no rush. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enjoying the coaching. I love helping young players. I love trying to try and get them to a different level than they're at in the terms of the training and the training that we do and the drills that we do to try and to get them at their peak and to see the development of young players and senior players, to give them different opinions and different drills that will help them become better players. You know, as a coach, it's very, very good to see.
Yeah. And I mean, you've played with under some great managers. Which one do you think you've borrowed the most from in terms of how you apply yourself on a day-to-day basis?
You know, I get asked quite a lot. I take bits from everyone, loads of bits from different, and some positive and some negatives. The negatives, would I do that? Possibly not. Would I do this? Yes, I would do that. So it's just taking that little bit of information from everybody else and then just molding that into one. Of course, it's not as clear as that in terms of, you still have to be a good manager. You still have to be, most important, good person. Just be honest with people. I think the good managers are the ones who's honest with you. And the most managers I played with that could just tell you things to your face, and then there's no secrets or there's no problems then after that. They're the managers that I enjoyed working with. So I'll pick pieces from a lot of them.
Is that still applicable in today's landscape of footballers, that you can be that brutal and honest as previous managers and used to seem to be with players?
Maybe not as honest as 20 years ago in terms of what you used to say to players, but you can still be honest with players in terms of how they're doing and how they're not doing. And there's ways of saying it and there's ways of doing it. You don't have to shout and scream. Of course, there's times you have to do that, as long as you respect the players and don't disrespect them in any way. As a coach, you're there to help. You're not trying to kill people. You're there to help. But of course, at times you have to, beyond the certain players, sometimes you have to scream at and it's not in a bad, horrible way. And there's certain players that you might have to put our arm around. That's just getting that balance right and getting that understanding. And you get that by obviously experience. You get that by the players that you have and understanding them players and getting a feel for them. So that's why it's always good to have, different chats with them one-on-one to see where they are and what kind of, personality that they are. Some people thrive off people on at them all the time. For me, it didn't bother me if people are on me all the time. But as I said, there's certainly ways of doing it. It definitely has changed in 20 years. There's no question about that.
I can imagine. I wish I could continue the discussion in management because I got about a dozen more to ask. But I only have time for one last question, which is, and I ask this to everybody, the eternal debate, Messi or Ronaldo? With you, it's slightly different because you played with one of my favorite players growing up. I'm 35 right now. Ronaldo.
35? I'm 49. You look way older than me.
I feel a lot older than you. Trust me. My hairline's receding a bit too fast for my liking. So I have to throw in the Brazilian Ronaldo's name into that equation because amazing. So if you had to choose between the three.
The thing is, they're so different in terms of play. The best number 9 of all time is R9, Brazilian. Best number 9. In terms of Messi, Ronaldo, just pure ability-wise, Messi is the best I've seen. I played against him when he played. He was off for 3 weeks with the Argentina team in June. It was my 100th cap for Ireland. My son was the mascot. He was only 1 at the time. And we exchanged jerseys, Messi and I. And he was off for 3 weeks. And Mascherano was my teammate at Liverpool. And he just said to me, he said, "Oh, Messi just turned up yesterday because he was, he had an extended season with Barcelona, so he just come back, didn't train, just come in. I think he came 2 days before, trained yesterday just for like a little mess about, and he got a standing ovation in the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. 60 minutes. It was the best performance. Nobody could get near him, couldn't touch him. It was like he was playing against kids that no one could touch him. It was honestly, it was incredible. Considering someone hasn't played for 3 weeks, didn't touch a ball. So that's his pure natural ability is incredible. Like the best I've seen. But then Ronaldo's desire mentality is on a different planet. He's got the Michael Jordan mentality, which is incredible.
Yeah, each one has their strengths, obviously.
Yeah,
I hope you still have the jersey framed up.
I certainly do. Yes, it's framed.
Excellent.
It's up on my wall. It's definitely for me is one of the greats of all time. Obviously.
My time is up. In fact, it's almost midnight where I am, so I'm going to go to bed. It's quite late. I'm sure you're probably settling in for your tea, but I really want to thank you for taking the time to speak to me. I wish you all the best, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Pleasure. Thank you, Adam. Good to see you. Take care.
Bye.
All the best.